Okay, so let's set a scene that I think every early years educator is going to recognize immediately.
Oh, I'm already nodding. I know this one.
It's Tuesday morning, 7 a.m., and everything is. It's going suspiciously well.
Mm-hmm. The calm before the storm.
Exactly. The coffee's hot. Your 3-year-old is they're a model citizen, a miniature diplomat.
A what now? A
Like that.
diplomat.
You ask them to put their shoes on,
And they just do it without a protest.
they just do it the first time. They hand over the coveted red truck to their sibling with this, benevolent smile.
Wow, this is a fantasy novel.
It feels like it. They wait for their toast without a single complaint, and you look at your partner or your co-teacher, and you share that look, the one that says, "We've done it.
The code has been cracked.
The software is finally installed. We are parenting geniuses."
And then comes Wednesday.
Then comes Wednesday, and it's like a different child has been swapped in overnight.
Same kitchen, same toast, same red truck.
But today is mayhem. It's Lord of the Flies over who gets the green cup. The request to put on shoes is met with a physical rejection so complete you'd think you'd ask them to defuse a bomb.
And the toast is the wrong shape. Which is apparently a capital offense.
A war crime. And you were just left standing there, your caffeine is wearing off, and you're thinking, but you did this perfectly yesterday. You know how to do this. Why are you choosing violence today?
It is the absolute classic Jekyll and Hyde paradox of early childhood.
It is.
And I would argue it is probably the single biggest trigger for adults. Because our brains, our adult logical brains, interpret that gap between Tuesday and Wednesday as intentional.
As defiance.
Exactly. We think you have the capability, therefore you're actively refusing to use it.
Right. It feels personal. It really does. It feels like they're looking you dead in the eye and saying, I understand the social contract, and today I am choosing to tear it up.
But the entire stack of research we're getting into today suggests that this is a profound misunderstanding of basic human biology.
So we're not dealing with a moral choice. We're dealing with, what did you call it? A flickering power grid.
It's a hardware issue, not a software issue. And that's what today's deep dive is all about. Executive function and regulation, specifically in that really volatile age range of 2 to 6 years old.
Honestly, the things we're going to talk about don't just explain toddlers. They explain me before I've had my coffee.
They explain most adults I know on a Friday afternoon when their resources are just gone.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then, to really take apart that phrase we all fall back on, they should know better.
To dismantle it.
Yeah.
Because it's not helpful and it's not accurate.
We want to look at the neurological reality. We want to understand why these skills we take for granted as adults are actually the most expensive, the most energy-hungry functions in the entire human brain.
And why they are, and this is the key, under construction for so much longer than we think. We're not talking about a project that's done by kindergarten.
No.
We're talking about a construction project that continues, in some ways, well into our mid-20s.
But for this age group, 2 to 6,
Yeah.
it's really the Wild West of brain development.
It really is.
Okay, so let's get into the machinery of it all. The literature always refers to the big 3 of executive function,
Right.
which, as the term executive function, it sounds so corporate.
It does. Like something from a business seminar. Let's synergize our executive functions.
Exactly. CEO of the toddler brain.
You know, that's actually a pretty good analogy.
Yep.
But the one I prefer is thinking of an air traffic control tower at a busy airport.
Okay, I can picture that.
You've got all this activity, right? Planes taking off, planes landing, luggage carts zipping around, fuel trucks.
Yeah.
It's chaos.
Total chaos.
Now, the executive function isn't the planes themselves. It's the system in the tower.
Yeah.
It's a controller that sees the whole picture, prioritizes what moves when, and stops everything from crashing into each other.
And in a 3-year-old's brain, this air traffic controller is, let's say, an intern on their first day.
An intern, yeah, who's maybe a little distractible, hasn't had any coffee, and is frequently taking unauthorized naps on the job.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So this controller, this system, is made up of these big 3 components.
That's right. If you really want to understand the meltdown over the wrong-shaped toast, you have to understand which of these 3 systems just failed. They are working memory, inhibitory control, and cognitive flexibility.
Let's break those down. Let's start with working memory. You've called this the sticky note in the brain before, and I love that.
It's a great way to think about it because it highlights how temporary it is. It's not long-term memory, like remembering your address or knowing a cow says moo.
So it's the brain's RAM. It's for what's happening right now.
Exactly. It's the mental scratch pad. So let's say you tell a child, okay, go upstairs, get your shoes, and grab your jacket.
What feels like a simple three-step command to us?
To an adult brain with a fully formed prefrontal cortex, yes,
Yeah.
it's trivial. But for a child, they have to hear those words, encode that auditory information,
Hold it on that little sticky note.
and keep holding it while they perform other tasks, like walking up the stairs, which requires motor planning and focus. And then they have to navigate past the inevitable distractions.
The Lego set on the landing, the ultimate final boss for a 4-year-old's concentration.
It is. And the research is so clear that the size of that sticky note, that working memory capacity in a young child is incredibly small.
And not very sticky.
Not very sticky at all. It's like it has a weak adhesive. So they get to the top of the stairs, their eyes land on the Lego, and that new, highly engaging visual input, it just wipes the slate clean.
So the shoes and jacket data is literally gone.
It's gone. It's been overwritten. It's not a conscious choice where they think, shoes or Lego. I choose Lego. It's more like a browser tab that was closed without saving the document. You can't just will that data back into existence.
That reframes so much. It's not defiance. It's a system crash.
A data loss event.
Which brings us to the second pillar. And this is, I think, the one that causes the most day-to-day friction for adults. Inhibitory control.
The brake pedal.
The brake pedal.
Yes. This is the ability to stop, to pause, to suppress what we call a dominant response.
And a dominant response is usually the impulsive one, right?
Almost always. It's the easy default pathway. I want that cookie, I take that cookie, I feel angry, I hit, I see a puddle, I jump in it.
Inhibitory control, then, is that tiny, crucial millisecond of a pause that allows another thought to get in.
Exactly. It's the pause that lets the thinking brain catch up to the feeling brain. It's the moment that allows the thought, wait, Mom said no cookies before dinner, or hold on, hitting hurts my brother.
And this is the part of the research that I found so fascinating. It makes a hard distinction between knowing a rule and being able to inhibit the impulse to break it.
They are two totally different neural processes housed in different parts of the brain.
That's huge.
It is. You can sit down with a 4-year-old when they're calm and ask, is it okay to hit people?
Yeah.
And they will look at you with total sincerity and say no.
They know the rule. That's knowledge.
That is knowledge. It's stored in their cortex. It's a fact they can retrieve. But in the heat of the moment, when their sibling snatches the red truck, that knowledge is in the back seat.
And impulse is at the steering wheel?
Impulse is driving the car, yes. And if that brake pedal, the inhibitory control system, isn't developed enough or is offline due to stress, the hit happens long before the knowledge of the rule can even be accessed, let alone applied.
So when we stand over them and yell, we don't hit, we're actually technically correct. They do know.
They do. They just couldn't do. It's what we call a performance deficit, not a knowledge deficit.
I love that phrase. It's like you have a map of the city, but your car's steering wheel is broken. The map doesn't help you turn.
Perfect analogy. And that leads right into the third one. Cognitive flexibility.
To gear shift.
The gear shift, exactly. This is the ability to switch between different tasks or different rule sets or different perspectives.
So things like, we were running and shouting outside, but now we're inside the library, so we use quiet feet and quiet voices.
That's a huge one. That's a classic cognitive shift. Or, on a smaller scale, I expected to get the blue cup because Tuesday is always blue cup day. But the blue cup is in the dishwasher, so today I got the green cup.
The green cup tragedy. We have all lived through the green cup tragedy. It seems so unbelievably trivial to us.
We laugh because our brains can make that shift in a nanosecond. It's nothing. But for a brain with low cognitive flexibility, that unexpected change isn't trivial. It's a genuine error signal. It feels like the whole system is crashing.
You can't just update the file.
They can't. They are literally stuck. Their brain is trying to run the blue cup future program, but the reality is the green cup reality program. And the system can't reconcile the two.
So the tantrum is a system reboot.
It's a hard reset. They're stuck in first gear, and the transmission is grinding because you're trying to force it into second.
Okay, so we've got these three core mechanisms. Working memory, the sticky note. Inhibition, the brake pedal. And flexibility, the gear shift. And the central idea from all our sources today is that these aren't fixed character traits. It's not like having brown hair where you just have it all the time.
No, it's much more conditional.
Your analogy was a Wi-Fi signal.
I think it's the best way to think about it. It's the available sometimes paradox. One of the research digests really hammered this home. Development isn't like a staircase where you
Yeah.
climb a step and now you own that step forever.
It's not a permanent achievement.
No, it's more like a wave. It ebbs and flows. Just because the skill is available on Tuesday, just because you have 5 bars of Wi-Fi on Tuesday, it doesn't mean you own that skill. It means you're renting it, and the rental is highly dependent on conditions.
And the lease can be terminated at any moment. So the sources list these circuit breakers,
Uh-huh.
things that reliably cut the power to the executive function system.
Yes, these are the things that take the air traffic controller offline.
I think every parent and teacher knows these in their bones, but seeing the biology laid out is just so validating. The first one is the most obvious: fatigue.
Sleep is the charging station for the prefrontal cortex. It's that simple. When we are tired, even as adults, our executive functions are the first things to go.
Oh, absolutely. I'll eat the junk food I said I wouldn't. I'll snap at my partner. I'll stare at a simple email for 10 minutes and not be able to write a reply.
Exactly. You're describing executive function failure. For a child whose system is already fragile, a lack of sleep or even just being tired at the end of the day is like pulling the main plug. The brain goes into a low power mode.
And in low power mode, it prioritizes the essentials.
Just the basics, keeping the heart beating, breathing, core motor functions. The expensive luxury features like patience, sharing, and emotional regulation, those get shut down immediately to conserve energy.
Okay, that makes sense. The next circuit breaker is stress physiology. This is the whole fight or flight response.
Right. And again, this comes down to energy conservation. Your brain is a budget-conscious organ, and running the prefrontal cortex, the home of executive function, is metabolically expensive. It burns a ton of glucose and oxygen.
It's the gas guzzler of the brain.
It is. So if the amygdala, which is the brain's smoke detector or threat detection center, senses danger.
And danger can mean a lot of things to a kid. It's not just a saber-toothed tiger.
Oh no. Danger can be anxiety, it can be fear of getting in trouble, it can be intense social pressure, it can be just feeling overwhelmed. When that alarm goes off, the brain's immediate response is to reroute all power.
It siphons the fuel.
It siphons the fuel, exactly.
Huh.
It shuts down the slow, expensive, thoughtful, thinking brain to power up the cheap, fast, reflexive survival brain.
So when we are standing over a child, maybe raising our voice saying, "Put your shoes on right now or we are going to be late and you'll be in big trouble."
You are actively triggering their stress physiology. You're spiking their cortisol. You are, in that moment, biologically disabling the very part of the brain that is required to follow a multi-step direction, like put on your shoes.
We are sabotaging our own goal.
Completely.
Right.
We're demanding a high-level executive function performance while simultaneously creating the exact environmental conditions that make it impossible.
It feels so backward because we're raised to believe that pressure and yelling get results.
Fear gets a result. It gets an immediate freeze or sometimes a compliance born of terror, but it does not get executive function. It does not build the skill. It just gets a short-term survival response.
And it's not just negative stress, right? The sources were clear about this. High arousal of any kind can trip the breaker.
Yes. Intense excitement does the same thing. This is the birthday party meltdown.
Oh, the classic. Every parent has seen it. It's your party. You're supposed to be happy. Why are you crying?
We spent all this money on a bounty castle and you're having a tantrum in the corner.
Yes.
The child's system is just flooded. Too much dopamine, too much adrenaline, it's too much positive stimulation.
Yeah.
It's like the party music is so loud that the air traffic controller can't hear the pilots on the radio.
The signals can't get to the noise.
Right. So the whole system just, it crashes. The biological mechanism required to calm down is overwhelmed by the very chemicals that are screaming, have fun.
And this ties into the last circuit breaker, which is environmental complexity. The idea of sensory load.
This is a huge one. As adults, our sensory systems have developed pretty robust filters. We can tune things out.
We can be in a loud cafe and still have a conversation.
Exactly. For a young child, those filters they're still under construction. They're porous. So imagine trying to do your taxes
Okay.
while standing in the middle of a carnival with a strobe light flashing in your face, a really itchy sweater on, and 3 different songs playing at once.
I would not be able to do my taxes. I would probably cry.
You would have a meltdown. And that is what a busy supermarket can feel like to a child's nervous system. The fluorescent lights, the beeping scanners, the announcements, the smells, the temperature changes from the freezer aisle.
It's a sensory assault.
It is.
Yeah.
And we expect them to navigate that environment, including the candy aisle, with the impulse control of a seasoned monk. But their brain is just trying to process 1,000 incoming signals per second. The bandwidth simply isn't there for high-level tasks. like inhibition.
Okay, so we've established that the hardware is glitchy and under development, and the environment is full of tripwires that can cause a system shutdown.
Pretty bleak picture so far.
It is. So the question is, how do we get through it? How do we help build this system? This brings us to a concept that was all over the sources, co-regulation.
Yeah.
And this idea, it feels like it runs completely counter to our whole cultural obsession with independence and self-sufficiency.
It absolutely flies in the face of a lot of Western parenting philosophy. We are fixated on the myth of self-soothing.
Right. You just need to leave him in his crib. He needs to learn to self-soothe. She needs to figure out how to calm herself down.
And biology just looks at that and says, nope, that's not how it works. You cannot learn to self-regulate in a vacuum. You are not born with these skills hardwired.
The research kept calling it a dyadic process.
Dyadic, meaning it requires two people. It takes two to tango. A child's nervous system is what we call an open loop system.
What does that mean, open loop?
It means it relies on an external source to find its balance. It needs an external regulator, that's the calm adult, to help it complete the circuit and return to a state of equilibrium.
So when a child is dysregulated mid-tantrum, they're like a car spinning out on an icy road.
Great analogy. They have no traction. They can't just steer into the skid because they don't have the neurological control to do so. We, the adult, have to be the traction. We have to be the guardrail.
So co-regulation is the act of what? Lending them our calm? Lending them our prefrontal cortex?
That is exactly what it is. You are their external hard drive. You are their auxiliary power unit. When you stay calm, when you get down on their level, when you lower your voice and say, you are so mad right now, you are literally downloading calm and organization into their chaotic system.
You're acting as their external nervous system until their internal one is mature enough to do the job on its own.
That's the whole game.
Okay, but I can hear the skeptics. I can hear the exhausted parents listening right now and thinking, wait a minute, if I always step in and do it for them, aren't I just creating a dependent child? Aren't I being a helicopter parent? When did they learn to do it for themselves?
And that is the absolute critical distinction that the research makes. We have to separate the idea of co-regulation and scaffolding from the idea of overhelping or rescuing.
Okay, let's tease that apart, because that's a fine line. What is the difference?
Overhelping is doing a task for the child when they're actually capable of doing it, or at least attempting it. It's putting on the shoes of a perfectly calm 6-year-old just because you're in a hurry.
You're prioritizing your own convenience over their learning.
Precisely. Scaffolding, on the other hand, is providing just enough temporary support to make a task achievable within their current zone of capacity.
Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, the sweet spot between what they can do alone and what they can't do at all.
That's the one. So, if the child is screaming on the floor because of the green cup, their capacity for problem solving is 0. So you don't problem solve. You co-regulate. You offer a hug. You breathe with them. You're the emotional scaffold.
You get them back to baseline.
You get them back to baseline. Then, once they're calm, you provide a cognitive scaffold for the next task. You don't just say, okay, now put your shoes on. That's too big.
You break the mountain down into pebbles.
Yes. You say, let's find the left shoe. Can you see it? You hold it for them. Can you open the Velcro strap? You provide just the next step.
You're the bridge that helps them get from I can't to I can.
And the research is so clear on this point. Help is not the enemy of independence. Help is the infrastructure of independence.
Say that again. That feels important.
Help is the infrastructure of independence. You would never look at a half-built skyscraper and say, okay, let's take down all this scaffolding to make it tougher. It needs to learn to stand on its own.
No, you'd have a pile of rubble.
You'd have a pile of rubble. You don't get a stronger building, you get a collapsed building.
Yeah.
When we remove support too early from a child, we don't create resilience. We create stress, anxiety, and avoidance.
That feeling of, I can't do it, so I won't even try.
Exactly. The goal is to gradually fade the support over time. But that timeline has to be dictated by the child's actual developmental readiness, not by our calendar or our desire for them to be independent.
And embracing the idea of co-doing.
Yes. Moving away from the model of you do it and into the model of let's do it.
Let's put the toys away together.
Let's figure out how to get this coat on.
Yeah.
When you do that, you're modeling the executive function in real time. You're narrating the internal monologue that they don't have yet. First, we find the armhole, then we slide our arm in. Okay, now the other one. You're building the blueprint in their brain.
Now, a massive piece of this entire regulation puzzle is communication. And Source 2 had a lot to say about language development. Specifically, it points out this huge source of frustration for kids, the gap between what they can understand and what they can say.
The receptive versus expressive language gap, or the input-output gap.
And it's the engine of the terrible twos.
It absolutely is. A 2-year-old might have the receptive language, the understanding of a much older child. They can understand complex sentences. They get jokes. They can follow multi-step directions if their working memory is online.
So they have this broadband internet connection coming in.
Yes, but their expressive language, their ability to speak, is still on a dial-up modem sending data out.
That have to be infuriating.
It creates immense internal pressure. Imagine having a really complex, nuanced thought in your head.
I specifically wanted the red truck, not the blue one, because the blue one has a slightly wobbly wheel, and I am trying to build a structurally sound ramp for my dinosaur.
Exactly that thought. But all your mouth can produce is truck, want truck.
And then the well-meaning adult hands you the blue one.
And you melt down. Not because you're a spoiled brat, but because you feel completely, utterly misunderstood and trapped inside your own mind.
Wow. And there's an even more direct link to regulation here. The research was really clear that when a child becomes dysregulated, expressive language is one of the very first systems to go offline.
It's a goner. Because speech is a higher order function. It's incredibly complex. It requires fine motor planning of the tongue and lips. It requires sequencing of sounds. It requires quick access to vocabulary stores.
It's a luxury feature.
It's a luxury feature that sits right at the top of the developmental pyramid. And when the brain shifts into survival mode, that fight or flight we talked about, it immediately cuts power to all non-essential systems.
You don't need to recite a sonnet to escape a bear attack.
You need to scream and run. Your brain doesn't care about your vocabulary in that moment.
So, when a child is in the middle of a full-blown tantrum and we stand over them saying, use your words, tell me what's wrong, use your words.
We are asking for something that is, in that moment, biologically impossible.
We're asking a drowning person to describe the chemical composition of water.
That is a perfect, if grim, analogy. They physically cannot access the language centers of their brain. The neural pathways have been temporarily shut down. You have to co-regulate them first.
Calm the body.
Calm the body, and only then will the brain bring the language centers back online.
It's that old saying, connect before you correct. But in this case, it's connect before you can even converse.
Always. Connection and safety are what restore access to the prefrontal cortex. You have to wait for the neurological storm to pass before you can talk about what caused the bad weather.
The sources also touched on how we talk to kids to build these skills in the first place. Research Digest 2 talked about the quality of our input, not just the quantity. Specifically, this idea of input you can see.
Yes. I found this fascinating, too, because I think most well-intentioned adults do the opposite.
I know I'm guilty of it. I try to have these deep, abstract conversations with my 4-year-old niece.
We all do. We tend to prize what the research calls decontextualized talk.
Talking about things that aren't here and now?
Exactly. What did we do at the zoo yesterday? What do you think you want for your birthday next month? What do you want to be when you grow up?
That's a high cognitive load conversation.
Extremely high. It forces the child to retrieve memories, generate mental images, hold them in their working memory, and then formulate a verbal response.
It taxes the whole system.
It puts a heavy tax on working memory. Input you can see, on the other hand, is talk that is grounded in the immediate shared present.
You're basically sportscasting the moment.
You're sportscasting. Look at that big dog running in the park. I'm cutting this red apple into slices. You're stacking the blue blocks so high.
You're mapping language directly onto a live sensory experience.
And that is far more effective for building both vocabulary and regulation because it requires much less metabolic energy for the child to process. They don't have to do the mental gymnastics of memory recall. They can just focus on connecting the words to the world.
It just lowers the barrier to entry for the whole conversation.
It does.
Speaking of lowering barriers, let's talk about the real work of childhood, which is play. But the research was specific here. It's not just any play. It's guided play that acts as a real powerhouse for building executive function.
Yes, this is such a key concept. It gets us out of what the researchers call the false dichotomy.
The idea that it's either totally unstructured, feral, free play on one end, or
direct instruction with flashcards and worksheets on the other. We tend to think learning and play are opposites.
But guided play lives in that sweet spot in the middle.
It does. In guided play, the child still has agency. They are the pilot. They are in control of their actions. But the adult has intentionally structured the environment. They've set up the flight path, or maybe they're sitting in the co-pilot seat, offering gentle nudges.
Okay, give me a real-world example. What does this look like in a preschool classroom or a living room?
So let's say your learning goal is to work on some early math concepts and also on that crucial skill of inhibitory control.
Two big goals.
Right. You don't sit the child down at a table with a math worksheet. Instead, you set up a pretend grocery store in the corner of the room.
Okay.
The child is the shopkeeper. You, the adult, are the customer. You've created a playful context. Then you come to the store and you say, "Hello, I would like to buy 3 bananas, please."
You've introduced a gentle challenge, a cognitive wobble.
That's it. You've just forced them to use a whole suite of executive functions. First, inhibitory control. Their impulse might be to just grab all the bananas or throw the plastic fruit at you, but they have to inhibit that because that's not what shopkeepers do. They have to play the role.
The role provides the structure.
And the role is the scaffold. Then they have to use their working memory to hold the number 3 in their head while they physically count out 1, 2, 3 bananas.
And then cognitive flexibility comes in if you throw them a curveball.
Precisely. You say, "Oh, thank you. Now I need a red apple." And they look and say, "We're all out of red apples." And you say, "Oh, okay. What else do you have that's red?"
That's the gear shift. They have to stop the Apple search program and start a new things that are red search program.
And here's the magic of it. Because it's play, their motivation is sky high. They want to solve that problem to keep the game going. They will work so much harder and demonstrate much higher levels of executive function in that play scenario than if you gave them the same problem on a worksheet.
They can focus for longer and try harder when they're pretending.
Absolutely, because the narrative, the role-playing, provides this external container for their behavior and focus. It does the heavy lifting for them.
That reminds me of another point from the sources about depth versus breadth. We live in this culture of, enrichment. We rush kids from soccer practice to piano lessons to coding camp.
Thinking we're building better brains by exposing them to more things.
But the research seems to suggest the opposite, that we might just be creating busy, overstimulated brains, not deep-thinking brains.
Deep learning and brain building require repetition. It demands doing the same wooden puzzle 20 times in a row. It requires playing that same grocery store game every day for a week until the script is absolutely mastered.
So that repetition we see as adults, which can feel a little boring to us, it's not boredom for them.
No, it's myelination. It's the brain physically insulating its neural pathways. Every time they repeat the action, the coding gets thicker, which allows the signal to travel faster and more efficiently.
So when they say read it again, that's their brain literally begging for one more rep to strengthen a connection.
It is. They're saying, "I've almost got this circuit built. Just run the current through it one more time so I could really solidify it."
I want to pivot now because I think this is a critical part of the conversation. We've been talking mostly about typical development, though I know that's a loaded term.
It is. There's such a wide range of
But what about neurodiversity? What does this look like for young children with, say, ADHD or who are on the autism spectrum? Because for them, that Jekyll and Hyde experience can be a constant state of being, and the developmental timeline can look very different.
This is where applying this lens of executive function becomes not just helpful, but absolutely essential for providing compassionate and effective support.
The sources referenced Dr. Russell Barkley's model of ADHD, which I found to be a complete game changer.
It reframes the entire condition. Barkley argues, very convincingly, that ADHD is not primarily a deficit of attention. It's a deficit of regulation, a disorder of self-regulation and inhibitory control.
And that single reframing explains so much. It explains why parents say, but he can focus. He can focus on his video games or his Legos for 3 hours straight, but he can't focus on putting his socks on for 10 seconds.
Exactly. It's not that they can't pay attention. It's that they have profound difficulty regulating where their attention goes and for how long. And most importantly, that inhibitory brake pedal we talked about. It's developing on a significantly delayed timeline.
So that gap between knowing the rule and doing the rule is much, much wider.
It's a chasm, which is why the concept of creating a prosthetic environment is so vital for these kids.
A prosthetic environment. I love that term.
Because their internal executive functions are delayed, they need more external executive prosthetics for much longer than their peers. They don't need you to tell them the rule for the 10th time. They know the rule better than you do.
They need the support to act on it.
They need a visual chart on the wall showing the morning routine. They need a timer they can physically see counting down. They need much more immediate and frequent feedback. A high five, a check mark right now in the moment, not at the end of the day.
You have to build the structure on the outside because the internal structure is still being poured and set.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're building a ramp for them because the internal staircase isn't finished yet.
And for autism, the research pointed towards a different but related set of strategies, these naturalistic developmental behavioral interventions, or NDBIs.
It's a mouthful of a term, but the core principle is just beautiful. It's all about shared control.
And the phrase from the sources that just stuck in my head was compliance secondary to connection.
It should be on a banner in every school. For decades, many traditional behavior models demanded compliance first. First, give me quiet hands. Look at me. Then do the task.
Which creates so much stress.
It creates stress, and as we know, stress shuts down the learning brain. NDBI flips the script. It says, enter their world first. Connection first.
So if the child is intensely focused on lining up their toy trains, you don't interrupt them and say it's time for circle time.
No, you get down on the floor and you join the line. You become interested in the trains. You narrate what they're doing. Wow, the blue train is going so fast. You use their intense interest, their passion, as the engine for learning and connection.
It's all about creating a better environmental fit.
It is. The whole neurodiversity affirming approach asks a fundamentally different question. It doesn't ask, how do we fix this child's behavior? It asks, is the child giving me a hard time, or is the environment giving the child a hard time?
And often it's the environment.
So often.
Yeah.
If a child consistently melts down every time the blender goes on, you don't need to punish them or force them to get used to it. You need to buy them a pair of ear defenders. You change the environment to fit their unique nervous system.
It's a theme that runs through this entire deep dive, really. We need to focus on changing the environment and our expectations to support the biology, not the other way around.
Exactly. It's about accommodation and support, not just remediation and correction.
So that brings us to the big, so what? How does this change things for the listener on a chaotic Wednesday morning? How do we take all this theory from the lab and actually use it in the living room?
The very first shift, I think, has to be in how we see things. We have to change the lens. And that starts with how we assess our kids' skills. We need to stop testing them all the time.
What do you mean by testing? Like, what color is this apple? Can you count to 10 for grandma? Show Aunt Carol how you can write your name.
Yes, all of that. It turns every interaction into a performance. It creates anxiety. The sources advocate for something called formative assessment via observation.
Be a detective, not an examiner.
Be a detective. Just watch them. Watch them play. And you'll gather so much more useful data. You'll notice, oh, interesting. He can share the red truck when it's quiet in the house, but he can't share it when the TV is on and his older sister is here.
That's incredibly valuable data about his regulation.
It tells you what conditions he needs to be successful. Just knowing he passed the sharing test on Tuesday is useless data. Observation tells you what the child needs. Testing just tells you what they did in one high-pressure moment.
And the research also emphasizes treating everyday life as the curriculum.
This is so important. You don't need to buy a special app or an expensive subscription box to build executive function. Life is the gym. Your daily routines are the workout.
Give us some tangible examples of these workouts.
Okay. Waiting for the toast to pop or the microwave to beep, that is a pure, unadulterated inhibitory control training session.
You're waiting.
You can stand there with them and make it a game. Let's wait. POP? You're practicing the pause muscle?
What about getting dressed?
Getting dressed is an executive function triathlon. It involves motor planning, sequencing what comes first, socks or shoes, working memory to hold the plan, and focus to complete it.
And the classic, the spilled milk.
The spilled milk. Our instinct is to see that as a disaster, a mess to be cleaned up quickly. But it's not a disaster. It's a pop quiz in problem solving.
A seminar.
A problem-solving seminar. Your first move isn't to get angry. It's to say in a calm voice, oh no, the milk spilled. What should we do? What do we need to fix this?
We need a towel. Where do we keep the towels?
Exactly. You're walking them through the executive function process of identifying a problem, planning a solution, and executing the plan.
That requires us, the adults, to slow down, though. It is so much faster to just yell and wipe it up ourselves.
It is. It requires us to make a conscious choice to prioritize the process of learning over the efficiency of the moment. Wiping the milk yourself is faster today. Helping them learn to wipe it themselves builds a brain that is more capable tomorrow. We're trading 2 minutes now for years of independence later.
So let's summarize the practical levers we can pull. Source 1 laid them out so clearly. When you're in the trenches, What are the 4 things to remember?
Lever number 1, predictability and routines. Routines reduce the cognitive load on a child's brain. If I know what's happening next, I don't have to waste precious mental energy worrying or trying to predict the future.
It frees up bandwidth for other things.
It does. Lever number 2, visual cues.
Take the routine out of your head and put it on the wall.
Put in pictures on the wall. Picture of a toothbrush, then a picture of clothes, then a picture of a breakfast bowl. The wall doesn't get angry. The wall doesn't get frustrated. The wall just calmly reminds you what's next. It offloads the working memory requirement from the child's brain to the environment.
Lever 3, modeling. This is a big one.
A huge one. Narrate your own struggles and strategies. Let them hear your internal monologue. Wow, I'm feeling really frustrated that I can't find my keys. I'm going to take a big, deep breath and then I'll look again.
You let them see the machinery. You show them that you have a brake pedal too, and sometimes you have to stomp on it.
Exactly. And that brings us to the biggest one, lever number 4.
Calm presence.
Your calm is the anchor. You are the thermostat in the room, not the thermometer. Thermometer just reflects the temperature. A thermostat sets it. If you overheat, the whole room overheats. If you can stay cool, eventually, I don't want to stress, not always immediately, but eventually, the room will cool down.
It all comes back to that core philosophy we started with, regulation first.
You cannot teach a dysregulated child. It is neurobiologically impossible. The learning channels are closed. You have to connect and regulate first. And then, and only then, can you reason or redirect.
This whole dive, it's really shifted something for me. I think for so long I've seen those chaotic Wednesday moments as failures. Either my failure as a parent or their failure as a child.
We internalize it.
We do, but reframing them as just power outages or construction zones, it takes all the shame and morality out of the equation.
It takes the shame out of it for both of you. And shame is a powerful inhibitor of learning, just as powerful as fear.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought, a provocation to chew on as they navigate their own Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
I'm ready.
What if we stopped viewing a child's request for help, or even their full-blown meltdown, as a failure of independence? What if, instead, we viewed it as a request for infrastructure?
Infrastructure. I like that. Like they're saying, I need a support beam over here.
Exactly. When you're building a bridge and it starts to wobble, you don't stand on the riverbank and scream at the bridge.
You don't say, you should be stronger. The other bridges in this town are standing up just fine.
No. You add a beam, you reinforce the foundation. So the next time your child wobbles, the next time they're having a hard time, maybe the question to ask isn't, why are you doing this? But what beam is missing?
Is it a sleep beam? A connection beam? A predictability beam? What support do they need right now to be successful? Be the engineer, not the critic.
Be the engineer, not the critic. I think that is the perfect mantra to end on. It gives us an active job to do. It's not just about gritting your teeth and being patient. It's about being constructive.
Exactly. It's a messy, noisy construction site for a few years, but the building they're creating is going to be magnificent.
Thank you so much for walking us through the blueprints of the toddler brain. It's been incredibly enlightening.
My pleasure. It's my favorite topic.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck out there with your own construction projects. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.